Rest for the Wicked is produced in Calgary, Alberta on Treaty 7 territory, the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bears Paw, and Good Stoney First Nations, and the home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. We make this acknowledgement as a small gesture of reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples who have lived on these lands for centuries. Thanks for joining me this morning. I wanted to ask you about your current situation as a parent, as a single mom. Tell us a little bit about your life day to day, being the person that you are.
Okay, yeah. So as you said, I'm a single mom. I have an 11-year-old son. His name is Jack. And we switch, his dad and I switch week on, week off. And they also live quite close, which is really nice. So when he's with me, he's in school full time, but obviously there was a teacher strike. And so he was working next to me on his iPad while I was on my laptop. But the nice thing about the situation is every other week he's with his dad, and obviously I miss him, but at the same time it's nice to have some time to rest.
Yeah. So, okay, tell me, I mean, you said when he's with you, he's at school, but you work full time. So
Yeah.
Is that a bit of a, when you come home from work and Jack comes home from school, are you guys kind of tapped out, or do you dig deep to find energy to spend time together?
I mean, it depends on the day. I think the intention is always to find time to spend together, but it doesn't always work out that way. I think usually Jack gets home from school and he busts down the door and he's ready to tell me about his day, and then I'll be in a meeting and I'll have to be can you, and I'm sure you've seen this too because my camera faces the kitchen. He's just walks into the kitchen and he's pouring himself a bowl of cereal, and then he's sitting next to me on the couch watching something, waiting for me to get offline. At this age though, when he was younger, it was much harder. They just need more of your attention and they don't know how to hang out by themselves. But now he is much more interested in hanging out with his friends when he gets home from school. So he doesn't want to talk to me as often as he did when he was younger. He wants to run upstairs and get on his iPad and play some weird game with his friends.
That's fair. I think we all wish we could do that. When he was younger, obviously his needs, what he needed from you was more. What was the struggle? Was it a struggle to find opportunities to rest in the midst of needing to care for somebody?
Yes. I was just talking to a friend about this yesterday, that I go to bed at 9:30, and they're like, oh, well, do you wake up super early? I'm like, no, I wake up at 7:30. Sometimes on the weekends I sleep until 9. I'm getting a lot of sleep now because I think I didn't get sleep for 8 years. And they just need more. They don't know how to soothe themselves. So in the night they will come into your room at 3 in the morning or 1 in the morning and be I can't sleep, and then you have to figure out how to help them out, and then you have to still have energy for a work day. And so I feel when he was younger, it was a lot harder to balance working, and then I was also in school full time. So I was doing a lot of things up until more recently. So now it's still a full-time job to be a mom, but the nice thing about his dad and I having a good relationship, even though we're not together, is that time in between. And so when he goes to Matt's, I get a full week of like living my own life. And, after work, I can unplug and actually relax. And so it does make the weeks that he's here where I'm, full-time mom, full-time working a little bit easier.
Yeah, it sounds like it for sure. Is there any
Yeah.
advice you wish you had when you first became a mom, about how to find ways to rest? Because we're going to get some of that advice from an expert in just a moment here.
Yeah. Advice I wish I had is just ask for more help and like ask for patience from people. Um, it does lower your capacity when you are caretaking for someone, whether you have a partner or not. And I think, especially for mothers, I don't think it should be that way, but I think expectations are different on moms. It's just sort of always be on and always know what to do. So I think it's important, if you have a partner, to like have those conversations, where you're like, hey, we like chose to have a kid together, so we both have to, take responsibility, and it's 50-50. Or also just like having community, I think is really important. I think that's harder these days. But when Jack was younger, I went to church, not a thing I do anymore, but that community was really helpful, for all of its shortcomings. There was a lot of people around to like help out, whether it's like babysitting or bringing meals or whatever. I think, there are other ways to find community like that, but especially when you have a young kid, I think it's super important to have like other parents, other mothers, and like a community where you can be like, I'm tapped out and I don't know what to do here, and somebody will bring a casserole and you can feed yourself for a week.
Well, maybe that'll be the advice we hear from our expert. Marissa, thank you so much for chatting
Of course. Yeah, thanks, Adam.
I am Dr. Lisa Bélanger. I have a PhD in behavioral medicine, the study of habits, and I am parent to 2 tiny humans.
I'm Adam Rozenhart. I'm a business owner and entrepreneur. I have no children, but I do love spoiling my nephews.
And today we are here with Chris Vincent. Chris, do you want to tell us your title?
Sure. I'm Chris. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of Alberta and a certified Canadian counselor.
Ooh, fancy title, Chris.
A lot of school.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
And do you snack hold for any tiny humans?
Yes, I have one 7-year-old little boy.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
And today was first day of school, right?
It sure was. We did staggered entry, so few kids yesterday we went and scoped it out, but today's the first official day. So
Amazing.
grade
yeah.
2.
Cool. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely.
Her son?
Yeah, exclusively, but also all sons and daughters. Just about some of the rest habits of parents, a lot of guilt that parents might feel about wanting to find time to rest, but also wanting to be there for their kids. So really appreciate you joining us for this conversation today.
It's a pleasure.
Amazing.
So why do you think so many parents feel guilt around taking a break for themselves?
Yeah, guilt is such a funny concept. I think it's nuanced. And when my clients come in and they're reporting an experience of guilt, I hold it quite gently because I would understand guilt to be a bit of a traffic signal. So it's giving us information. When we have that experience of guilt, it's letting us know that at some point in time, we've violated or trespassed a value. We've done something that doesn't quite align. But the flip side, the tricky part of that, because I'm sure folks are going, wait a second. I don't want to feel guilty, or this doesn't make sense to me. It's not pleasant. It's not helping me. It lets us know that we violated a value, but values are socially constructed. Values are placed in us within our context, whether that's our family, our country, our community, our faith practices. So our values are sometimes given to us. So when guilt pops up, it's a great information for us to stop and take a look at, okay, so what am I doing that doesn't quite align? But then a deeper reflection, why doesn't this align? Is this because I really feel that I should be doing something different? Or perhaps of an internalized should coming from media, our communities, our social context. So guilt is, I think, to reference your question, pops up because we've done something that's out of alignment. But the call to action is for us to be reflective and find out where that value came from.
Gotcha. Okay, so this guilt pang is data.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be slave to the emotions that provide data.
Love that.
And we should just recognize that I'm feeling this way and now I need to explore the reason.
Right.
And it might be because of the unrealistic expectations heaped on parents.
Well, let's explore that for a second. So when we think of breaks for parents, whether that's, and we can think of it to kind of define this more. It could be a break from parenting. It could be a break from all the things, right? So if we even just say mental load or something like that, or just doing something for self, where do you think culturally, specifically in North America, what are those pressures or potential values that are imposed on people, specifically parents?
Totally. And I think values are going to slightly differ between family and community and location. So we see a lot of those ideas that are almost ubiquitous in how we work, internalized, and then it does become confusing. Am I responding in a way when I'm not following these rules? Am I responding out of guilt because I actually agree with these rules, or they've just become so intertwined in the fabric of my inner world?
So when we experience guilt, what is physiologically happening, or how is this being, how does this happen in our body?
Yeah, exactly. What happens to our brains?
Yeah, and I often talk about the difference between the brain and the mind. Okay?
Ooh, okay.
So Daniel Siegel talks about this concept that the brain is a bit of what we can't control. We have neurotransmitters and all these beautiful little chemicals, some we like, some we don't, kind of being released in automatic ways. But then we have the mind, which we can control. We can use that meta thinking or that act of reflection and asking those questions of, okay, do I agree? Does this fit with me? Or do I want to, create a bit more space? Which then the mind can control the automatic responses of the brain. So especially, Dr. Lisa, as you were talking about, should I take a break before I really need it? And I think that's fantastic. It's a great question, because when we're going, and this would happen numerous points of the day where things are happening, right? And our nervous system is responding. And our nervous system, and this is a very oversimplified example, but it's great.
Perfect for me.
It's kind of all the information we need in this conversation. But the nervous system has two general pathways. So we have the pathway of activation and we have the pathway of dissociation. And when we become overwhelmed or overstimulated, or there's too much of an ask, we're going to start to see us starting to follow down one of these two pathways, and oftentimes we may even ping pong between the two. And what these look like, and I'm sure, as a parent, I hear you, see you, love you, I experienced this yesterday. The activation pathway is going to start to feel like irritability. Right? You're grumpy. Yeah. We have a short fuse. Put on your shoes. That kind of activation. And then the dissociative pathway, which we don't talk about quite as much, but that's the checking out. That's the zoning out, right? That's the I'm not here, or I just want to escape and play Candy Crush, or
I'm seeing a lot of that out in public these days.
Yeah.
And I think devices contribute to that. Like, no judgment on parents who are dissociating from kids who are misbehaving or whatever, but like I've observed
And it's
a ton of that.
It's escapism, right? Like it's
Yeah.
this ability to be like, my nervous system is being activated.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel that pressure of overwhelm. I'm going to seek this like quick fix, easy. I'm saying easy, that's not fair, but
Available,
thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Way to regulate.
Absolutely.
And then because if I go the other way, I'm getting grumpy, I'm getting mad, so I feel like this is something, again, with a lot of self-reflection and ability to reflect, why breaks become so important. Because, and my next question is, what happens when you are constantly on and not getting those breaks?
Totally. And I hold this kind of dissociative pathway with great respect in my therapy room, right? Like with great respect, because it is a coping mechanism. And whatever we use to kind of get through the day, I hold with love and tenderness. But if we are kind of walking down one of those pathways, or we're moving from the green zone into a red or yellow, we're moving into spaces of dysregulation, that's the opportunity for guilt.
And just to
Right?
clarify the zones.
Yeah. That activation.
But like green to yellow to red.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so green being that regulation. We talk about yellow being activation, and different thinkers will pose different theories, but I like this way to think about it, because and we talk about the activation pathway as that flight or fight, right? But we're doing something.
Yes.
So, if I have a client that I'm talking to who's kind of in this space and they're active.
But you can't fight a child or run away from them. So
Yeah, not well. It doesn't go well, right?
Chasing me.
Exactly. So we think of that as yellow. And then the dissociative pathway, which really starts with kind of people-pleasing, agreeability, self-sacrifice, martyrdom.
Yeah.
These are kind
Ooh,
of pathways to avoid conflict. We're not showing up as our authentic self. And then all the way, that's the fawn of those 4 kind of responses to overwhelm. And then we get to the freeze with lots of spots of checking out and zoning out all along the way. But we think of that as red. We're a little bit more attentive to that response. I'm paying a little bit more attention as a therapist, and because we're starting to lose you in that red zone, and I want to bring you back. But those are opportunities for guilt to pop up.
Okay.
And in that sense, oh, that's great information, right? So we're a little bit irritable, or a little bit like, I just want to close the bathroom door and not be spoken to. I don't want to hear mom, those types of things. All right, so that's great information. I'm moving out of my window of tolerance and I'm moving into overwhelm. And that's so guilt kind of letting us know, all right, I've got to interrupt this.
Yes.
Here's my opportunity to create some moments of rest.
So it's a trigger to then initiate behaviors where even if it's micro-dosing it, like even if it's like small bits of rest or calm or quiet or whatever it might be that is overstimulating.
100%. And,
Right.
and I remember the experience. I was in graduate school when my son was born, and I had it all.
That must have been very easy.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I wouldn't recommend it. But I had it all planned out. I was to finish kind of the last week of July. He was due August 6th. I had this all sorted.
Because that's how it works.
Yeah.
And it totally worked out that way.
Yeah.
He followed your schedule to a T.
No, he was born in a very traumatic way in an emergency circumstance at 33 weeks. So while everything was going on, and I remember it was palatable, like it was a tangible experience of this guilt just descending within hours of him moving from, the womb to the outside world. And I was floored. I didn't expect it. And it was overwhelming. And so this gives you insight into how my brain works. Because I was in graduate school, I then moved to creating literature reviews and reading everything I possibly could on the concept of mother guilt. And there was an interesting concept that popped out to me that I've continued to think of. It's the idea that mom guilt, or parent guilt, which would be more appropriate, can be the child's advocate. Right? And
Tell me more about that. Absolutely. I love this.
So this continues
Yes.
with the theme of guilt being good data.
Somewhat helpful,
Right,
right?
right.
If we can mobilize it,
Yeah.
it can be helpful.
Okay.
And a really good example, some of these memories just stick with you.
Yeah, of
My
course.
kiddo was probably 18 months, and he was in the bathtub, and I was moving along that activation pathway, and my fuse was getting shorter. I was getting irritable, and I probably spoke harshly, and immediately that experience of guilt. Okay, so that's information, and I'm like, okay, so if my 18-month-old can't look at me and say, "Mommy, you're big and strong, and when you speak in your big voice, it's really scary to me."
Yeah.
He can't say that. My guilt was my inner advocate for him going,
Yeah.
"Hey girl,
Yeah.
you have skills, you know how to do this. Start using your tools, bring in those micro rests, and show up in a way that you intend to."
But
Yeah.
even with, and just from a life lesson perspective for little people, and when they're older than 18 months, but when you get short fused or you see yourself becoming irritable, or you're like, and then that guilt kicks in, to be able to recover from that shows children that this is, all emotions are okay. There are 8 pieces of information, and there's ways to move through them, so that there's not this illusion of perfectionism, and then they're struggling with their big feelings, being like, why do I feel these big things?
You know what's so funny about that is, like, I think, again, not a parent,
You
but
should just start every sentence
yeah,
with that.
I'm not a parent, but I think it's so interesting how, like, the parents that I know learn the information being relayed to them by their nonverbal when they're really young children. Oh, that cry means this specific thing, but so often we're not as in tune with our own signals to know what
Yeah.
they mean.
Yeah.
We just react to them, right?
Totally. And to Lisa's point, when we feel these emotions, or we can start to feel ourselves being activated, if we haven't been able to hold our guilt in such a way, then we bring in that voice of judgment, or that inner critic, or that inner parent, that authoritarian inner parent that says, "You suck, you're a bad mom, look at you, you lost your temper."
Oh, good. You've met my inner critic.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we have to approach the guilt with some grace
Yeah.
to be able to let it guide us to what it should be. So whether it's a
Absolutely.
self-reflection on, are these my values I'm violating?
Yeah.
Or are they somebody else's values that I'm feeling that guilt from? And then if they
Yeah.
are mine, what am I going to do about it, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
Right? I grew up with Seventh Heaven,
Oh yeah.
born in '84, and that was just like, I just thought that's how families
Totally.
were supposed to
Yeah.
be.
Yes.
And that's how moms were supposed to be.
Right.
So sweet and just so lovely, and the house looked perfect.
Okay.
And so if I'm right, if my house doesn't look perfect, or I'm
Right.
running late, or kiddo has Fruit Loops for breakfast, or whatever the case may be, if I'm feeling guilty about that, whoa, that's information, but it's information, but it's not the captain of the ship. My present self, my best self, needs to use my discernment to unenmesh my internalized social values from what my intentions
Yeah.
for myself as a parent.
Well, and it's so funny because we were talking about the B-roll we're going to need for this episode,
Yeah.
which is literally like piles of dishes and, messy houses. And I'm like, don't worry, we got it. And then Adam looks out the window and he's like, we could just scan my deck currently because it is an absolute mess. And I had this ping of, right? Like this almost
You
like,
did? I'm
no. But that my children and I sat out on my deck, and that is a memory I have, and I value that more than anybody thinking that my deck is messy, because it was such a great way to start the school year off.
I love that.
I'm having my coffee, the kids are having their breakfast outside.
And just so you know, like, I know it's not a thing, but I'm looking out there not thinking, boy, Lisa and her kids are messy, but
that's true too. Like
Sure.
both things are true.
but I'm like, oh, this house is really lived in, and something happened here.
Yes.
That was interesting. There were blankets on the
Yeah.
chaise and all that stuff, and I love that. Can I take us on a bit of a tangent? Just for a moment?
Please.
Yeah.
So, my wife and I take my little brother's kids for a weekend every summer. We call it nephew summer camp.
Sure.
And my wife is very conscientious. She's very thoughtful, and she wants to do what's best for those kids. So she will kill herself to make sure every moment is programmed, that they're eating great food, no junk food. And I'm just like, do you ever want them to come over here again? Like, we're their aunt and uncle. We should not care about any of this. And I told my little brother this. I'm like, listen, when they come here, they're not going to live like they live at your house. We're going to eat crappy food. We're going to watch movies. We're going to play video games. And he's like, I literally don't care.
Yeah.
So what can I do for her to let her know that the guilt might be a signal, but that it's not necessarily enabling, I don't want to say the right behavior, because that's pretty judgmental, but like, how can I make her more chill about this whole experience? How can I get her to just kind of...
I think that's an amazing question, because
Right?
you're talking about it for a week and a year, but I think there's so many parents that feel that.
They have to do that
day.
all the time.
Yes.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any advice around that?
Yeah, I would prioritize like what's really, really important. And I think kids are little humans, and we don't sometimes, absolutely, I put my kid to bed and eat a bowl of ice cream and I am okay.
Heck
Yeah.
yeah.
You know?
You survived.
It is
Yeah.
all right. And in our house, I talk a lot about balance with my kiddo. So absolutely there's room for treats, and absolutely there's room for cartoon. How do we create balance so that kind of honors his need for fun, and also my enjoyment in being able to do things and create space and opportunity for things that are just pleasurable. They're just nice to experience. Ice cream is delicious. It's a nice experience, right? But yeah, what do we need to bring in balance? Whether that means, we walk to the ice cream shop so we get a little bit of movement, and but paying attention to how. One thing, again, born in '84, we didn't talk about our bodies. We were floating heads. We didn't have, any kind of somatic connection.
Yeah.
And when folks started talking about yoga, there was like, oh, it was scary. It was different, right? And my number one kind of goal or intention for my kiddo is just to create this awareness and this sense of what's happening in his body.
And I want to point out, this is you speaking as a psychologist.
Yes.
What I feel like is so real for so many parents is they were never taught it.
Absolutely.
And now there's having this expectation to teach your child emotional intelligence when we have a whole generation, many generations that have not been taught that. So I feel, because of the knowledge I have and the background I have, that I have to do that, that this is somehow... And to me, I think as parents, it's about creating community that can do that. Sure. So I'm just hesitant to get too far down that conversation, because it becomes another thing on my list that I have to do as a parent, and it's one that I never got taught.
I know, we weren't taught.
Yeah.
But I do think that the connection between mind and body is intuitive.
Yeah.
Do you know? I think it's...
Absolutely.
I think it's there.
Yeah.
And when we're kind of going down one of those little pathways, we can just stop and notice. And absolutely, I need community, and I need reminders even for myself, my health practices and my personal therapy, or we can build in, whether that's I commute. I don't journal, but I commute. That's my opportunity to go, okay, so what is happening? How do I feel? And to try to be curious about how your experiences or the morning feels in your body.
And I think that's so much the lesson that I like looking at this. The lens I like to look at this through is, if you as a parent can be curious about exactly that and leaning into discovering and learning, you're demonstrating that for your child, and it's a little bit easier of a message to swallow than you also have to teach them emotional regulation. How about we learn it? How about we learn it along with our kids? So this really reflects back on to my next question, is what are these little opportunities for breaks? How can we see them? Because we're so overloaded. Everybody will say, I don't take breaks because I don't have time.
Yeah.
And I can't give you more time. There's no way to do it. Your child needs to be parented all the time. It's not something we can consciously choose sections of time to get somebody else to look after them. But when you are a primary caregiver, when that is required, how can we see these little opportunities to take breaks?
Totally. And I'm a single mom. So like I hear folks and no one's taking out the trash if I don't take out the trash.
Right.
And no one's doing the bath if I don't do the bath.
Well, that's like, and you'll see that on social media where it's like, moms will have this audio and it's, you don't have to do everything. And you're like, neat. Who's going to do it?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Great notion. But if there's no one else to fall back on,
You're it.
you're it.
You're it. And some things have to get done. I think we can kind of be bringing that awareness into what are my values versus what are societal values.
Yes. Can you give that, sorry.
Yes.
I did not mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's good.
Your example that you gave when you and I were talking about your son's homework, I thought that was such, when you told me, I had a full-on aha moment.
Ooh, we have to hear this now.
Okay, you want to, right, because I do try to practice what I preach, and I am a single mom, and I do believe in, and we'll talk about creating those breaks, but like, I would say the first thing is starting to take things off your list. We have this idea of sometimes we make things harder for ourselves. I don't know if that's helpful, but what is helpful for me is how do I make things easier for myself? And I do start taking some things off the list. So for example, because I work, I pick up my kiddo at 5 o'clock at after school care, and I try to have him asleep by 7:15, 7:30. Another, I think, starting when we talk about rest, like sleep is so precious.
Yes, we have learned this.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you tell my 5-year-old that?
So important, right? So both for him and for me, sleep is a huge priority in our household. So when I look at, I pick him up at 5, we're home about 5:15. I have 2 hours. 2 hours a day with him. And I start looking at what's important. Sleep is number one.
Yeah.
And when he started grade 1, and we started, and full caveat, I hold teachers in the highest regard. They are angels on earth. I totally respect what they do, and I love them, and I love education. But we were being sent home with homework, and I very quickly realized that 2-hour window on my school nights, or every second weekend, because my kiddo's with his other parent, is very precious time. And when I started looking at priorities, sleep, connection, I want to see this kiddo. I want to have eye contact with him. I want to know what's going on in his world. I want to giggle with him. I'd like to feed him. That is important.
You're required to. That
Right?
I'm pretty sure.
Right? Even if it's chicken nuggets, whatever, but
yeah.
like food in the belly. And hygiene's somewhere on that list, bath a couple times a week or whatever. Homework did not make the list. And I just made the call that I wasn't going to do homework.
Did you experience guilt when you made that call?
I might have at another point in time.
Okay.
But being the only parent in the house, I'm so, probably because of the personal work that I've done, I'm so closely in tune with my values and how I conceptualize my role as a parent. And my jobs as a parent are to attune, right? So that's noticing and matching kiddos' energy and regulate. Because they have a nervous system is a nervous system. They've got the same 2 pathways. Yeah. So it's noticing where they are on the spectrum and regulating them down back into that green zone. And when that's my job.
When she told this story to me, because I would argue I have a similar personality, type AAA, control enthusiast.
Yeah.
And I value my role as mom so much. So she told the story as she went to a parent teacher.
Yeah.
And the teacher told her that he needed to work on something very specifically in his homework.
Yeah.
And she just said, I'm so simplifying this, but like
paraphrase.
No.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that was an option. I literally would have taken that same information and be like, okay, clearly we need to very much work on this. But when she reflected that back on me, I agree so much with what she's saying, especially at that age, where it should be, there's so many other priorities and there's something that needs to fall off the list, and it can't be hygiene, sleep, feeding them allegedly, or that attunement or connection. So you have to say, if you're saying yes to this, you're saying no to something else. And I completely agreed with her values, but I wouldn't have had the courage to be like, no. Like, no, thank you.
I would have been so deferential to the teacher's authority.
Yes.
And craving a gold star from them.
Yes. And this idea of like, as a good parent, I would do X, Y, Z. Even though, again, if my values are challenged, that wouldn't align. So that was, when she explained that, I was like, oh, that's where you get to have that self-reflection, to be like, where is this guilt coming from? What are my values? And it's completely changed how I look at other people saying what I should do as a parent differently.
It's so interesting. I'm curious, just to like close the loop, how did your son's teacher react to this?
Oh, I think she understood it. And, and I can kind of, I'm a feminist therapist. I, channel my area of expertise. I'm recognizing my privilege, holding the title that I do, that I may, if she's a psychologist.
Right, so if like a steel worker was like, no.
Right?
That's interesting.
And I'm just recognizing my position and my privilege in that.
One of the questions we haven't gotten to that I want to ask you, because we've been talking, of course, a lot about mothers. Yeah. How do dads factor into like guilt? Do they experience it the same way? What are the expectations from your perspective on fathers?
I love that. So if we consider, and if we hold guilt in this kind of curious and respectful way, noticing that it's indicating that a trespass or violation has taken place based on values, you realize that the values that we are socially conditioned to internalize are radically different for women and men in our communities, right?
Even if you do it so superficial to say the value we put on the different genders, leisure time.
Yes.
And I like this example because it makes it really real. The amount of, and I'm being completely sexist when I say this, and please know that it's not everybody and it's not every relationship or whatever, but the amount of men that play golf for multiple hours, and that it's seen as so normal and they need it and they're deep compressing, and then reflecting back on, and again, heterosexual relationship, traditional family, but you're reflecting back on mom, and she doesn't have a thing she does for multiple hours.
No, for 4 contiguous hours, forget about it.
But I had a father friend reflect this back on me. He was doing this guy's trip, and they have 3 small kids under the age of 5 at the time, and wife was supportive, but goes, hey, wait, why don't I get a trip? And he goes, you can have it, but I'm not planning it for you. So if you come to me with a planned trip, 100%, I'm there for you. What do you need as support? But I am not driving the bus. Yes. Nobody's coming to save you. That's right. You have to create that time and then ask for support, which we tend to not be great at anyway. But I had that, when I saw that reflected back on me, and I'm like, oh, we're starting to say, hey, you shouldn't be able to do that, or how do you get to do that and not me? But then haven't planned out the trip and haven't done and taken the action. So I thought that was valuable to me, because I'm reflecting to myself, where I'm like, if I haven't created that space, I can't be mad at anybody else for me not creating that space.
True, but it must be difficult for, especially a single mom, to carve out the space to do that at all.
I am aware. And it's very difficult to ask for help.
Yeah.
Even if you have people around you to help. It's very, very challenging to ask.
It is. And I think what big generalizations, but something that really irks me is, dads, their leisure time is a more protected, because we value men and we value men's work. And our expectation, this is just the soup that we live in, that we have to, bring some awareness into. But for moms, what we do allow them, the only rest that we allow, the only rest TikTok will allow for moms is wine.
Yeah.
And that gets me really irritable, because I don't, have a glass of wine, go for it.
Yeah.
But
nothing against wine. We have no issue.
Don't come for us, big wine. Yeah,
that's right, exactly. But it's if we use it in place of regulation and
It's
rest.
escapism.
It's
that-
sedation.
Yes.
It's sedation. So we tell moms, oh, you had a hard day and you worked and you did the dentist appointment and you did the homework and you did the parent teacher and you did all of these things.
Yeah.
We're not actually going to support you in doing those restful things, but here's a glass of wine, here's some mommy juice, and you know, that'll be good enough, right?
Yeah.
And it the impact on sleep is
brutal.
important enough
Yeah.
to say that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not rest.
No.
Women-
Rest is not built the same.
No.
Like there is a very active rest, there's a passive rest. And drinking wine to me is a very passive activity. You are, as much as you're doing it, it is something that escapism you're seeking, that sedation you're seeking is going to impact your physiology. And it's poison.
Yeah, it has
it's
negative
legitimately, it's
compounding
really
effects.
fun,
Yeah.
but like bad, it's poison.
Does anyone want a glass of wine right now?
Right now.
Yeah, like
No, I'm on my upper. Thank you very
that's
much.
right.
That's right.
Get us back into that green zone.
Well, this is again part of the culture where it's like you coffee, and then
Yeah.
you're allowed to wine.
Go.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then
we
you're
spend all our whole day here, you know, and road rage is fine, and irritability is fine, and all of these things are okay.
Yeah.
And then at 5 o'clock, we then switch to over here. And I think that as parents, as humans, we do deserve better.
Yeah.
And we do deserve to go, wait a second, you know, because if we keep women sedated, then they won't rise up.
Yeah.
They won't ask us to actually make those changes.
Just gonna write that down.
Right? Yeah. But if we go, wait a second, no, we need real fundamental change.
Mm-hmm.
We need more supports. We need active, involved
Yes.
co-parents and dads,
Yes.
you know, in the muck with us.
Yeah.
Then, and we need real rest. And if mom wants a glass of wine, that's okay, but it's not.
It's not the only thing.
It's not the only option.
Yeah.
I was giving a presentation to a group of engineers, mostly 95% male in the room. And after my presentation, because I talk about rest and I talk about respite, and I talk about this idea of not self-care, but team care as well, so that there needs to be a both way. So in a co-parent situation, whatever that might be, that there is a, okay, I got the kids, you do the thing. Or I got whatever it might be. I got the dishes. I got the, I'm going to take this load so you can have some time, energy, and effort towards yourself.
And to push back on, you know, it because sometimes we can really create this dichotomy of dad gets the, you know, in a heterosexual relationship, dad gets the fun stuff and mom does the labor. But to really introduce, like for mom to say, listen, I'm going to take kiddos to the
park.
Playground.
Yes.
Because you know what? I'm not a big fan of playgrounds, but I do love a good walk.
Yeah.
It's bilateral stimulation. It's very, very regulating. So, and it's lovely to just hear
Kids laugh and play. I know.
It's so
And dad can
good.
stay home, do the dishes, and have a glass of wine.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Give
Do the
dad's
vacuum.
wine. That's what I got from this.
Right.
I actually.
But I just,
go
sorry,
ahead.
I just want to finish my thought. So I had a father come up to me after. He has two small kids. They were 2 and 4. And he goes, my wife's burning out and I just realized I could take the kids. And I was like, you just realized.
Did you say that to him?
Yes.
Good.
I was like, you needed my talk to explain that she needed, because he's like, I couldn't figure out why she wasn't doing the thing that would help her. I was struggling to figure out why she wouldn't, like if she loves running, why she wouldn't run or why she wouldn't do the thing. And then he goes, oh, I can give her permission and space by taking the load, whatever that might be, so that she could do it. And I was like, oh, we just haven't had these conversations enough. Like, no fault to him. He chose engineering. Like, he has a specific brain, and I get it. But, like, to be able to have more and more of these conversations, to be like, how are other people showing up? Right. Are we able to see things in our partners they can't even see themselves needing the break? Are we able to plan before they need the break?
Yes.
And
you're and to circle back to something that you said earlier, you're like, you said it nicer than this, but Chris, don't give me another list of things to do, right? And that's not what we want to do for parents, particularly moms, but for other, for the co-parent in the situation, if that does exist, instead of going, well, Lisa, you need to be, why aren't you getting up doing your workouts? And why aren't you making better decisions, right? That's just a doubling down on that societal guilt, on that individualistic responsibility to make to create health in unhealthy contexts or situations. But I encourage that other parent to go, what can I do? And I'm going to show up and start doing the thing. And maybe it's not perfect. And, I think particularly for me as a single parent, those micro breaks or those rests often have to be done with my team, with my kiddo, right? And so if that other parent can go, hey, let's go for a walk together. Let's go do that, right? Those are wonderful opportunities.
I think that's it. Like there's the micro breaks for self, the bathroom closing, the door, the whatever. I just have this great picture of my kids' hands going under the door when you're like, give me a second.
They're like cats.
Yeah. But doing and understanding the team effort as well, I think that's so powerful because that's something I want to do with my kids. I want to have the levity. I want to have the lightness. I want them to see that in me.
It's
not
your
just
best self.
Not just this stern
disciplinarian.
Yeah, exactly. You
burnt out, exhausted.
Yeah.
Right? And again, if we're in that beautiful green zone of regulation, our kids are getting that information too. And that creates good regulation and safety and security and,
all these
increases your
needs, like all the fundamental needs.
Check.
Yeah.
Honestly, like when we were talking a little while ago about the list of what you need to give your kid so that he can be his best self within a 2-hour window was kind of mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like I don't. Have you ever thought of that? Like
that's what I was saying. It was such a different lens to see my role as parent through. And again, because of the way that I grew up, the way I was rewarded, I have this really big performance angle to things. And knowing all the things I know about self-regulation and being in school with like your full mental capacity, I still never looked at it, or I never had that reflected back to me from another parent. I've never had permission to hold what I value, even if there's other pressures. And I do feel like you're almost pushing back, and you called it resistance, and that's exactly it. You're holding space and being like, no, this is what I believe is important. The way I talk about attention is if you don't know where you're paying your attention, somebody else will take it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And this is kind of the same conscious effort to be like, I'm holding this space for these things that I find important, because if I don't, somebody else will sabotage that. Somebody else will take my attention away. And this is where examples on those parents that work is being able to create that space. And we call it work-life balance. I want to call it work-life integration, where it's a little bit more of a creative approach on what works for you. But what it comes down to, are you present for the moments? Are you present for the thing? So if it is work, are you present for that? Right. And if it is parenting, are you present for that? Are you present for your partner? And if you start getting this really big mush between all of them, that's where the issues happen, and you're not living your values in any one of the situations.
That's right. And you are suffering.
Correct.
I totally agree with you, Lisa. And in the therapy room, my therapeutic goal for every person that I work with is the ability to live our intentions for ourselves, our ability to live authentically. And I say this all the time, if we do that, if we make decisions based on our values, and if we're showing up if we've created the space to show up authentically in our lives, the marker of success is not the approval of others. I guarantee you, I promise other people will be disappointed. I promise other people will tell you you are failing, or you've let them down, or you're letting your kids down. And it's not because people are bad. People are not invested in you living an authentic life. People are invested in generally us making their lives a little bit easier.
And when they're saying things like that, like you said earlier, it's that those comments are about them, not you.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Like it's but it's so hard to think that, especially you. I think you and I are both kind of people pleasers. I'm very much.
Definitely. We just had the most Canadian fight ever, where it was, you said to me, I'm so glad that you took on that bit of work because I didn't do it, but now I feel guilty and I feel bad. And I'm like, actually, like, it's a teamwork here. Like, that's no problem. I saw that wasn't done. That was nothing on me to create and do. He's like, but I felt bad. It lasted a solid 7-8 minutes of us apologizing to each other. Like, it was just, so absolutely. Sorry, where are you going?
I wasn't going anywhere except to say that, like, guilt is good data. As long as we don't sit in it, right?
Yeah, if we can mobilize it, right?
Right. And then the information from outside other people's judgments, probably not always the best information, maybe not even relevant to our particular situation, even though it seems like it is.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right?
And yeah, again, not because other people are bad.
No,
but
no.
Because that's not their universal
And,
work.
yeah,
you
and
know.
we're the only ones who can live our own lives.
It's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
With this conversation, we have really defined guilt as a piece of information and as a trigger to potentially act or not, depending on where the value systems align.
Yeah.
So let's presume, I'm going to say in single parenthood, so whether you're actually a single parent or at the moment you are the adult, the only adult available, you can't say, oh, I'm going for a walk,
Yes.
see you later, 2 and 4 year olds, I'm out. So you are stuck in the situation, whatever situation that might be.
Oh, yeah.
What are some opportunities from micro breaks that we can start getting people and getting them curious about what they can design?
Totally. And I would say this is stuff that I do, right? And so, and we were talking about kind of allowing our kids to see us irritable or having a difficult emotion.
Having feelings.
Having feelings.
Yeah.
And then watching us kind of process it. So if I'm feeling a way, we know, in therapy we talk about, we name it to tame it. And that's just a cute way of describing the physiological changes when we put words to our emotion.
Right.
So when we say, whoa, hey bud, did you just hear mommy's voice? That changed a little bit. I'm feeling frustrated, or I'm feeling exhausted, or I'm feeling confused or scared. We reduce the activation in the amygdala. Like it's that.
Really?
Yes,
Just
isn't
by
that beautiful?
just by naming it.
Again, I'm not saying we don't solve the problem, we don't make the problem
No.
go away, but we do take an activation that may feel too big and make it more manageable. And that absolutely is modeling for our kids emotional literacy. This is what we do when we have big emotions. We try to figure out the words, right? And then I can say, okay, what's happening in my body? Oh, and a lot of my stress will show up in my hands, so I'll get really shaky. So it's like, I need to do something with my hands. Hey, buddy, what should we do? He's really big on pillow fights. I'm like, all right, right? So whether we're just taking a pillow and boom, 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 woo, how does that feel? And he loves it. He's like, oh yeah, that feels good, right? Or I'm feeling it in my legs. All right, let's run on the spot. Those are some examples. I also practice EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So that's a therapeutic intervention for trauma. But there are these beautiful basic tenets of EMDR that we can incorporate. So when we sleep, we go through the stages of sleep. That kind of final stage in the cycle is REM, rapid eye movement sleep. Our eyes are going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth behind our eyelids. Why? That's strange. Because left brain controls the right side of the body and vice versa. And as we move our eyes back and forth, we wake up both sides of the brain to make sense of what's happened during our day. So that bilateral stimulation, right, is something that we do in the therapy room to process trauma, but absolutely we can use it throughout our day. If I'm about this, like you can take this with you, right? If I'm about to go into an appointment and I'm kind of nervous about it, this butterfly tap is beautiful. It just, oh, hey, oh my gosh. And yeah, do you need a hug? I hear you.
Yeah.
So
And butterfly tap is your, sorry, because this is going to be audio
oh
too.
yes, I love
Butterfly
it.
tap, like it is that crossing your arms and having them on around both shoulders and tapping side to side.
So my therapist recently taught this to me, and
Oh
I
my
was like
gosh.
so annoyed because it worked. It was one of those, right? It's one of those things where I was like, this is so silly.
Yes.
Why are we doing this? And
That's
he's like, but it
right.
works, doesn't it? I was like, curse you.
I love it.
No, it was great.
And because it's how our body naturally processes, right? Process being just another word for regulation. So we go back and forth, left, right, and you can choose to speak to self, right? You can say, hey, we're okay. We're all right.
Yeah.
Hey, notice that. We're going to be okay. Or even if our nervous system is activated, it always comes down to safety, because that's why we're experiencing an activation. Something doesn't feel, we're noticing threat, right? So even just the mantra of we're safe, we're safe, we're safe. So I'll absolutely do that with my kiddo. Hey buddy, oh, I'm not feeling so great. Let's do our butterfly taps, right? What would you like to say? Would you want to say something to yourself? Or he's a really sweet, empathetic little kiddo. So sometimes he'll say, I want to say I love you, mommy.
But even on that bilateral movement, I've seen recent research talking about walking, because we so naturally go side to side. So that's so accessible for us to be like, I'm feeling a thing. I need to process this. Go for a walk. Again.
Yes. Doesn't solve all the problems.
No,
but
we're
it's trying to make unsolvable problems a
brings it
little
down.
bit more manageable. And that's exactly how Francine Shapiro kind of discovered EMDR. She was like on a walk and she's like, why do I always feel better after I go for a walk? Oh, right, because we're getting all parts of the brain on board to kind of give the
and
body
the
what we need.
MRIs between before walk and after walk
Really?
show that they light up like
So
Christmas trees. So you're using so much more of your ability.
As my staff will often say in our group chat, I'm going for a stupid walk for my stupid mental health.
Yes.
And it's so aggravating
Right?
that it works, but it does.
Why does this stuff work? But it works, yeah.
So I would, mobilize the ability of our brains to do what they naturally do to make the unmanageable manageable through bilateral.
Yeah.
And then the final thing I would say, like I had mentioned, we do speak to the nervous system through our senses. So use that sensory input that works for you. There's no right or wrong. Find out what works for you to either down-regulate or up-regulate, and use those things. Some people really like temperature, whether it's warm or cold.
Yeah.
Go with that. We can't always get in the shower. We'd love a nice warm bath every day, but whether it's either cold or warm water on the wrists or on the hands, warm up those little extremities.
And I've heard
right?
of holding ice cubes as a way for cold.
Freezer
and
packs. Totally.
Yeah.
Use the things that smell, either uplifting or calming. You don't have to follow the rules of what smells or what, but just find the things that really work for you. Even holding your beverage, right? I have always carry a case of carbonated water in my trunk. There's a reason you get a bubbly when you come into my office. You've got the taste, you've got the physical sensation of those popping little bubbles. They just invite us into our bodies.
She totally did that to me. Like I went to talk to her and I first met her.
She was like,
gave me a bubbly immediately. Like,
I love that.
yeah.
It's part of, it's
No, it's great.
bringing the body on board, using our senses. We are on the same team as our bodies.
Yeah.
Right?
But
Let's
okay.
work
So if we
together.
thought of this as a toolkit for parents,
Yes.
it is first would be the where do you feel it in the body, and do you need to get basically the energy out? Is there a way to dispose of that? And then number two was the anything bilateral. So the bilateral tapping, butterfly tapping, or walking, or eye movement kind of things. And then number three is understanding how we can use our senses. So that is some self-reflection, is understanding how you can use senses, temperature, smell, different things that we taste that we can do to get us on board. And I think, again, seeing it as a toolkit, these are things we can do with our kids in the house.
100%.
If we are stuck.
Let's show them this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Let's do it and give our kids the ability to build their own toolkit and figure out what's going to work for them.
In my experience, with the limited groups of parents that I know, I feel like they over-program for their children. Yeah. And I remember, I know it was different. The world was different when I was born in the 80s, just like you. And I wasn't a latchkey kid, but my mom was like, the front door is open. Yeah. I want you to walk out of it. And don't come home until you hear me yelling at you. Yeah. So, and it was up to us to figure our stuff out. Yes. And there were other children in our neighborhood, of course. Yeah. So that certainly made it easy. But are parents over-programming the day for their children and not providing them the space to just be bored and figure things out for themselves?
I love to experience things with my kiddo. And I really feel the compulsion. And that's oh, there's an indicator. Oh,
Yeah,
what's
well, that's information.
Yeah, totally.
Sure is. Why are you compelled to make sure that there's some kind of activity going on every weekend? And I think that there's a lot of contributors to that compulsion, but fear of boredom probably being one of them, because it's not like it was when we were kids.
No.
When you were bored, you literally had to use your imagination, or you had to go and do something, and now we've got that screen.
Yeah.
So I'm compelled to kind of find these outings or these experiences or these activities in order to reduce screen time. So it is hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yet that free play, and you know, I love that you asked the question, because it's so real and alive in my world right now.
Sure.
Because I really like to go out and do things. And my kiddo's like, actually, I kind of just need to stay home.
They will reflect it back to you too. They're like, my kids will be like, I
Yes.
just want to chill. And I'm
That's
like,
right.
How do you, what?
Can you teach me how to do that?
Yeah, exactly. Tell me more. But
100%.
like, for example, after yesterday was their first day of school, I had different, my son had soccer, and that's what I
Yes.
thought we were doing. And he was like, really, tonight? And it ended up being canceled, which is the most wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to be able to stay home and just have time with the family and do the chill.
Right? And there's another opportunity for permission in the resistance of guilt, because we're all just like, oh my God, it was canceled. So it wasn't about going to soccer. It was about feeling like we had to go, right? So if someone else says you don't have to go, well, then we're relieved of the guilt.
Yeah.
And I, as a bit of an introvert, I create what I call snow days. I grew up in Nova Scotia. We have a lot of snow days. And the snow day for me is planning something and then canceling.
I knew I liked her. I just didn't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two Nova Scotians.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Blue nosers, they're called.
Oh, really? Is that right?
Yep.
And so I know kids always go to school here, but I create snow days for myself. But you have the permission. We have the permission
We're
to go.
full-blown adults. We're
My
allowed.
kid is not up to soccer tonight. I'm not up to soccer tonight.
Yeah.
It's okay for us to miss. So I love activities for sure, but giving ourselves the permission to listen to our kids, listen to our bodies, noticing the capacity, and creating those opportunities to sit or to skip or to stay home.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Somebody told me, just like in music, magic happens in empty spaces.
Absolutely.
And so to be able to have the activities and not simply sit home all the time, but like have the activities, but allow that magic to happen in the empty spaces as well.
Yes.
Giving permission to everybody to do that. Now, if we are thinking about somebody, a parent that is really struggling to find permission and space, feeling that guilt of taking breaks, what is like the one next thing that they can do for themselves?
I love that. And if you kind of came into my office and reported an experience of guilt, again, my job is just to be curious, because we don't know what that guilt is on behalf of. Mm-hmm. So that's the question I would kind of leave listeners with, is when you're experiencing that guilt, let's be curious. What is that on behalf of? Mm-hmm. Is that because we're not living or parenting or being a human in the ways that we intend? Or is it because we've internalized some expectations of what our lives and our parenting should look like?
I love that. So just think about it.
Just think about it.
But get really curious, like
Yeah.
really curious with self, because I think that's one of the things, again, we weren't necessarily taught, is to have that self-reflection. So being able to question that feeling of guilt.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been so wonderful, Chris.
It was delightful.
I'm
Thanks
so
much.
pleased that you could join us.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
Yeah. So I have a private practice in Calgary called Playback Psychology. So we're just at Central Calgary. I have a team. We offer sliding scale services. We offer trauma therapy, and you can find us at playbackpsychology.ca.
Sweet. Check that out, and we will check it out as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Rest for the Wicked was filmed on location in Calgary, Alberta by Philip Harrison and Centerpin Media. Pre- and post-production by Conscious Works and Adverb Communications. And of course,
You can connect with us through the Rest for the Wicked Instagram and TikTok accounts at Rest for the Wicked Pod. And make sure you subscribe to Rest for the Wicked wherever pods are cast.
I've never heard anyone say that before, so I wanted to.
I like it.
We'd love to hear about your experiences and struggles with different forms of rest. And if you have an idea for a future episode, let us know that too.
In the meantime, remember, get some rest so you can stay wicked.